press turned out in full force to this property at 22nd Avenue and Bethany Home Road, where a meth lab was seized earlier this year. But this time, city officials came to announce stringent new laws designed to cut production of dangerous crystal meth.
Good morning. I'm Councilman Dave Siebert.
I'm Councilman Tom Simplot.
And as you know, we co-chaired a task force this summer to look at the methamphetamine epidemic that we have in our communities.
We had very specific ideas and recommendations that came out of that task force, primarily imposing a new city ordinance, and that's what we'd like to talk to you about here today.
Tomorrow, this ordinance will take effect. It will require that all pseudoephedrine or ephedrine-based products with any trace elements of those chemicals in them must be put behind the counter. It is a misdemeanor if it's not behind the counter. The drugs can be seized by the police after one warning if the retailer refuses to put them behind the counter. This is very important for us because right now, these meth labs, example, we are standing in front of a home that earlier this year had a meth lab busted in it. The fact is, it's toxic, hasn't been cleaned up yet. There are problems throughout our community when these meth labs are allowed to exist, and they cannot produce meth without the availability of the pseudoephedrine and ephedrine products.
We know that ideally this should be state legislation, a state law. We didn't accomplish that last year, so we're doing the next best thing, and that is to go city by city, region by region, so we have ordinances that will limit meth labs like we had right behind us here in this house. And we're being successful city by city.
Many cities are following our example. Now, people who buy the pseudoephedrine ephedrine products will have to sign a log. They'll have to have a picture ID, which is a driver's license, passport, tribal ID card, or military ID in order to purchase it. But the issue is, we are going to take a bite out of crime by shutting down meth labs. Now, that does not mean that we're going to stop the meth epidemic by this ordinance in and of itself. What we are making sure of is that having these hazardous chemicals, these toxic waste dumps in our community is not acceptable. Example on this home, there were 5 people living here when it was busted. One was a 6-year-old girl. In talking to our Attorney General, Terry Goddard, many of the people, the kids that are going into CPS, are there because of meth-related issues. This is affecting everybody in our community, whether it's ID theft, whether it's burglaries, whether it's increased in healthcare costs. Something has to give. And this is the decision that we've made. I agree with Councilman Tom Simplot. We must do this at the legislature in the next session, but right now, this is the only thing that we have to work with, the powers that we have, and that is to draft the ordinance.
We have with us here today Chief of Police Jack Harris, and I believe Chief Harris is going to talk to you a little bit about what efforts the police have done to notify retailers and other efforts. Chief Harris?
Thank you, Councilman. First, I'd like to just say thank you to the Public Safety Subcommittee and the Mayor and Council for once again giving the police department the tools that we need to be able to do our jobs to protect the community. Methamphetamine is a huge, huge problem in our community and really across this nation. It has become the drug of choice for many people, and it is ruining lives and ruining communities. This is a great step in helping us to be able to go to the source of the production of methamphetamine and try to shut down the production of this really dangerous drug. We have put together a group of people that have been responsible for shutting down 149 meth labs in the city of Phoenix last year. That gives you some idea of how huge this is. We have sent out notification to all of the pharmacies in the city to let them know that this ordinance is coming and that there will be police officers that will be doing follow-up inspections, looking at the identification that was produced for people to buy quantities of pseudoephedrine and ephedrine so that we can track down and find and locate even more of the labs that are producing this. I would also like to encourage everyone to go to the website that Phoenix has established. It is www.phoenix.gov/meth, which will give you all of the information that we have been collecting on this problem and on the new ordinance. Thank you.
If you have any questions, we'll be glad to answer them. We have experts, Sergeant Don Sherrard and also Chief Kahn. And many of you know the problems that our law enforcement and our firefighters have in going into these meth labs. They'll go into a burning structure, for example, a firefighter. They have no clue when they walk in there that the fire was caused by a meth lab. And so they're exposed to toxic chemicals. The police officers that have to go into these buildings are exposed to toxic chemicals. And again, it's time to get these out of our neighborhoods.